Hi folks, welcome to Coffee and Colossians on Friday. We're going to look at verse 24, following up 23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you'll know that you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Now that's the attitude to do with work. But before we do that, I want to reflect on something just as I was out walking this morning. And I think there's an enormous danger that what we can end up doing is we can take these verses, the verses on family relationships, the verses on employer-employee, and we take them as a general kind of how-to. And I don't think they are. They don't have that kind of detail. But I think this is an outworking of what we've got back in chapter 1 and verse 19, when talking about who God is, who Christ is, Christ being the head of creation and the head of the body. And then he says this in verse 19, for God was pleased to have all this fullness dwell in him, and through him, that's through Jesus, to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. See, the cross applies to your family relationship, and the cross applies to your work relationships because it brings peace. We've seen that already in this just mini part of Colossians, because there's a slave owner and there was a slave, Philemon and Onesimus. And Paul writes about how they can be reconciled. It's through the blood of the cross. So let's just apply that here in terms of, you know that you're going to receive inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It's the Lord Christ you are serving. Your whole attitude to work changes when you consider it's the Lord Christ you are serving. So let me be honest. I'm here. I've worked as a minister basically all my life. I'm here in my office here. I could just be sitting watching YouTubes. I sometimes do watch YouTubes. I claim, research. But in the kind of position that I'm in, you could be actually really lazy. And lazy ministers are a curse. And there have been plenty. You're not constantly being monitored. In other situations as well, people can be like that. But our attitude should be, we're not just waiting to see whose eyes are upon us, who's watching us, who's measuring what we do. But we within ourselves know that we're doing it for Christ, and therefore we work incredibly hard. And what that means is any employer should be delighted to have us, because they don't need to motivate us, and they don't need to watch us. And one of the ways that we do that is because we know we're going to receive an inheritance as a reward. It's an incentive, surely it is for many people when they're working, isn't it? That if your boss says to you, if you complete this project, I'll give you an extra £1,000 or an extra $10,000 or whatever. But for the Christian, we have this inheritance. We receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. Now, what's fascinating here is slaves were not allowed to receive an inheritance. But Paul says you get an inheritance. You are getting an inheritance. 2 Corinthians 5, 9-10. So we make it our goal to please him, whether we're at home in the body or away from it, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive what is due to him for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. The reward we get is the inheritance, but you don't work for an inheritance. It's a gift. But that means that we can work and we can deal with it. I hope I'm explaining that clearly. For me, it's an incredibly revolutionary insight. And it's a very challenging thing as well, because too often we can work for, even in Christian ministry, but often we work to please the people around us. And Paul's saying, don't do that. Don't do that. You're getting an inheritance from Christ. Work cheerfully, work joyfully, because God has given you that inheritance. You're working for the Lord, not for human masters. It's the Lord Christ you are serving. I think if you grasp hold of that, it'll really help you in whatever work you do. Okay, we shall leave it there, and join us on Sunday for the Sunday Catechism, which I think I'm just going to record just now, and please do feel free to join us on Monday as we continue going through Colossians. We'll be into chapter 4. And by the way, the new Quantum is out, and I think you'll find it really interesting. So go onto the website to get that, or wherever you get podcasts. God bless you, and see you then. Bye.